library program. And so our students are pursuing a Master's of Science in Library and Information Science. So they're going to be future librarians, certified
Mhm.
public librarians in New York State and other parts of the country. We've got students spread out across the country, even globally. We've got students in Morocco and Eastern Europe right now.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's
we're
so
a
cool.
pretty good program, pretty big, and yeah. So if you could just talk to us, I've kind of seen uh, I've seen the Girls Who Code at American Library Association annual conference for I think the past couple of
Mhm.
years, and so I think it's just valuable. We've got a number of students who are interested in youth services, and a number of students that have a STEM background. So I think
Hmm.
it's just an opportunity for them to build awareness, and a lot of our students are currently working in the field, so they may be able to bring this back to their institution.
Yeah.
So I'll just progress here in the slideshow, just to make sure that we're documenting that today is today, October 22nd. And you can go ahead. It'll just be a brief conversation between you and me, and a recording of it will be posted for our students who will view it asynchronously at their leisure. So
Perfect.
without further ado, I present DELISA, the DLS Student Association welcomes Emily Ong of Girls Who Code, and I'll go ahead and make you the presenter.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Michael. Excited to speak with the future librarians or current librarians as they're working in their libraries. Let me double check to see. I just want to make sure I can also share my screen and then hopefully they can join on. I think I just have to change my system preferences. Okay. Okay, I think I actually might have to X out and come back in order to share my screen because I
Okay,
just updated it. Okay, so I'm just
no
gonna leave
problem.
the meeting. I'll come right back.
No problem.
Thanks.
All right, looks good.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, once again, really excited to be here and talk a little bit more to our future librarians at St. John's. Really excited to get started. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about coding equity and distance learning made easy with Girls Who Code. So I'll talk about our resources, supports, and everything that anyone might need to really bring STEM with an equity lens into their specific library communities. So just to quickly introduce myself, my name's Emily Ong. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Partnerships and Outreach at Girls Who Code. Been here about 3 years. Prior to that, worked primarily in the special education and educational nonprofit space. So I was excited to bring that lens here as I now build partnerships with library networks, school districts, state departments of education, and other national organizations across the country as well to provide a lot of our free and flexible coding opportunities. So today I'll focus on a few different elements. One is bringing into the lens that we're bringing from Girls Who Code in terms of the importance of gender equity in STEM programming. So a little bit more about our mission and our movement for gender equity overall. I'll then provide a brief overview of our clubs program to set the stage for our deeper dive on tangible best practices and sample activities right from the curriculum. And then I'll end off with just how to access those free resources, whether it's for an in-person or a virtual setting. There's lots of resources that we have as well. So to start us off, I would love to, think about that why, right? So why are we here? Why do we do the work we do to really lead this movement? So in thinking about the overall space of computer science, we know that coding has become such a sought after skill in the workplace for today across a variety of different sectors. In fact, there's about 500,000 open computing jobs in the country today, but only about 40,000 computer science graduates in the US every year. So there is definitely so much opportunity there and room for growth for our young people. And women in particular are even being left further out of this opportunity. So if we take a look here, overall in 1995, 37% of tech jobs were held by women, but today only 24% are women. And through our research with Accenture, we found that if we do nothing, the gap will continue to widen to 22% by 2025. Now, this is staggering, right? So, especially when we think about an even bigger gap of female representation in leadership positions within those tech companies. So, we need to have a much more diverse representation of people in the door to, one, provide them with more opportunities on an individual level, but also to be able to make innovative contributions to society through teams with more diverse perspectives. So in order to do this, we do really need to start earlier, right? Where women are drastically underrepresented in educational pathways for tech as well. Right now, only 19% of students who do receive a degree in computing are women, and only 2% of those students who receive a degree in computing are women of color. And so how can we really change that overall? That's where Girls Who Cook comes in. So we are an international nonprofit leading the movement to address this gender gap in technology. Our mission is really to promote gender parity in computing and technology sectors by inspiring, educating, and equipping girls with the skills that they need to thrive. At Girls Who Code, we do strongly believe that all girls have the ability to change the world through code. So we do serve all girls, especially those who are underrepresented, are free reduced lunch eligible, have little to no exposure in computer science, and are female regardless of gender assignment at birth. I'll also note that for our clubs program in particular, which is the primary one that we work with our libraries for, students of all genders are welcome. So, I always think it's also great for girls, boys, and students of any gender to know that there are inspiring women in tech and that they too can be an advocate for gender equity. Across all of our programs, we do follow along with three main components of our educational philosophy. So the first one being more than code. So as I mentioned, we're not just teaching girls how to program, but we also are teaching them that computational thinking, how to break down problems and think creatively. And the technical skills are not only great to have in any profession, but learning coding is also a really great tool to help girls build life skills like bravery, resilience, and curiosity, which has enormous impact on how they approach challenges in the future and if they stick with coding in the years to come. The second pillar is sisterhood, right, or community. So research has shown that having a supportive group to learn and grow with can really help with retention. So we aim to help girls feel supported through the community feel of our clubs and by showing inspiring role models of women in tech. Club members also become part of our alumni network of 300,000 strong to continue being supported from K through 12 to college and career. Our final pillar is real world relevance and impact. So we know that education becomes much more powerful when what we're learning is relevant to our lives and our interests. So we want our girls to know that they can use computer science to change the world and that they can use these skills no matter what they want to be when they grow up. So when implementing your own programming across your libraries, definitely I encourage you to see how can you make connections through activities you select, the community you create, and the connections that you make to your library patrons overall. Since we were founded in 2012, we have served over 300,000 girls and young women to date, now all across the country, and the Canada, the UK, and India since we had expanded internationally a couple years ago. We're also really proud that 50% of our alumni are from historically underrepresented groups, and that our 80,000 college-age alumni are choosing to major in computer science and related fields at 15 times higher than the national average, and our Black and Latinx alumni at 16 times the national average. So we can really only do the support through incredible and passionate community leaders and librarians just like you. So we're excited to bring you into the fold and show you some of the resources you can use to also contribute to this really great impact. So now I'll dive into our club's program overview overall. Would love to give you a sense of the structure and then highlight a few different kind of key activities you can bring back right away. So with that, let's take a look at the overall, overview of our club's program. So for our clubs, it is completely free programs for girls and young women to join our sisterhood of supportive peers and role models and to learn how to use computer science to change the world. We do break it down by age group. So there's the 6th to 12th grade clubs as our core programming for our middle and high school students to learn how to be brave and resilient as they use code to change the world and practice those skills. Our 3rd to 5th grade clubs for elementary school students give an introduction to coding using a book club type model, which tends to fit in really well for our libraries too and get them excited before they move into our middle and high school programming. I'll mention too for our program, in addition to everything being completely free, you could be in person or virtual for either option. So definitely depends on what timing you have and what your community is looking for at that time. In terms of logistics, for our 6th to 12th grade clubs, it is an extremely flexible structure for you to meet the scheduling needs and the skill level of you and your library patrons. Typically, they meet for about 10 or more sessions at about 1 to 2 hours per session. Some clubs meet for a full semester, some year after year, and we have over 120 plus hours worth of plug and play curricula across all skill levels. It all culminates in a Girls Who Code project where club members use their coding skills to solve real world problems that they care about. Our 3rd to 5th grade clubs are a little bit shorter and go from about 5 or more sessions for about 45 to 60 minutes per session. It is more of an introduction and follows that book club type model, as I mentioned, using our New York Times bestselling books with chapter guides and online or unplugged activities for you to use. Across both age groups too, we do provide you with all the curriculum, lesson plans, ongoing support, everything for free, which is always the best price, and anyone can lead a club. So teachers, librarians, of course, parents, community leaders, and more. So regardless of your experience with computer science, you can lead that club. We give you so much comprehensive resources and support. And in fact, actually, most of our facilitators don't have prior coding experience, which also makes them really great role models as lifelong learners. One example I love to give, I was talking with a library, a small rural community in Idaho, and they have a very small library that fits maximum like 15 people at a time in that library. And so they started a club because there were the 2 daycares around their community that closed like 1 or 2 weeks before school started. And the parents were trying to figure out, what do I do with my kids? Can I send them to the library? And so the library had to quickly pivot and create after school programming for their young people. They were able to apply to start a club. They got approved within a couple days, took a look at the curriculum, literally like 2 days before their first meeting. And their first meeting was the first time the facilitator, the librarian, had ever seen coding before. It was her first time opening Scratch, and she was really able to learn alongside those students, which was so great to see. So you could definitely do it too. She's a great example of how you can really take this curriculum, pick it up, and run with it. So now I'll give you a sense too of what a sample session looks like, and then we'll dive into some of those activities. So the first one is the sisterhood activity. And so every 3rd to 5th grade club meeting can start off with this optional sisterhood activity. It's different icebreakers, energizers to help build a sense of community amongst the club members. The 3rd to 5th graders then read from one of our best-selling books and reflect. They complete a coding challenge, either online using Scratch or offline. So there is the opportunity, if you are in person, to go completely offline. At the end, they finish up with a stand-up, which is a traditional software engineering practice where they could develop a growth mindset by reflecting, receiving feedback, and asking questions. Across the board, too, due to COVID, we have made some adjustments and adaptations to our curriculum to make it even easier to use on a virtual setting and easier, too, if you have limited time or some tech challenges. And so, overall, we have a standard club model where you meet the entire time synchronously, which means that you do every single one of these activities all together as a group, whether you're in online or in person. Or you could use our hybrid model where you do these first two activities all together as a group and then do the following two activities asynchronously. So you assign it to the students to do afterwards. So there is that option too, once again, depending on how much time you have, the learning style of your students as well. For a 6th to 12th grade club, you can see some of the activities are mirrored here and some a little bit different. So it also starts off with a sisterhood activity. After that, they move into learning about inspiring and relatable role models in the industry through our Women in Tech Spotlights, which is one of my favorite parts of the curriculum. Afterwards, for about 40 or more minutes, girls can dive deeper into our user-friendly self-guided coding tutorials featuring a variety of different programming languages like Scratch, Python, or Swift tutorials we've developed in partnership with Apple. We've also released a new set of tutorials for game development using the creative side of JavaScript called P5JS. Now, all of these languages, if you've never coded before, might sound a little daunting or you're not exactly sure what those are or might feel scary. That's okay. It's just simply different coding languages to tell the computer what to do. And some of them are pretty easy, block-based, draggable, very easy to pick up. So you'll be able to learn alongside your students. Then they work in teams to build their culminating Girls Who Code project using their new coding skills. At the end, each meeting ends up with a stand-up, as I mentioned before. So each component, as I mentioned, once again, can be run in person or virtually, and you have flexibility to run it synchronously or asynchronously based on the time you have. So now I'll dive into a couple quick sample activities for you to keep in mind, and then we'd love to move into how to access a lot of these resources. So one of them, for example, is called the Shakedown. Very simple, easy to follow icebreaker. You might have done it in other places before, but don't underestimate the power of energizers too to get the blood flowing, especially in a virtual setting or in person, just to get them moving a little bit more too. So this one is great to get those jitters out. You have participants stand in a circle and then follow your lead. You first count down from 6, starting with your right arm, so 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then your left arm, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then your right leg, then your left leg. After that, you count down from 5. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, etc. So you keep on doing that. We won't do that right now, because it's the recording. But maybe I'll do like it super quickly, counting down from like 4, since you're watching this in the convenience of your own home at your own time. But feel free to do it with me. So you can count down from 5, for example, or 4. So we'll do 4 for today since it's a little bit shorter, and we'll just go 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. Perfect. Ooh, okay. Great. So usually you'd start off from 6 once again to get it moving a little bit. Hopefully you got a giggle out of it, or that you got to stretch a little bit at home. But once again, it's good to just get the blood flowing, move around a little bit, super quick and easy to lighten the mood a little bit and get your students kind of loosening up as they build community together. The next activity, and we won't do this here today, is called Pitch a Product. And so here's one we like to use some with our little bit more older students, some middle and high school. And it's also one of my favorites. It's a sample entrepreneurship activity. And for Pitch a Product, you put together either in person or virtually a bunch of random adjectives and a bunch of random nouns. You have a team within your club. You can set little mini teams or pairs. They choose one adjective and one noun to create their product name, like glitter coffee or bouncing pants or power potato, or you get the gist. So each team has 10 minutes to come up with an imaginary product that they'd sell and what their pitch would be. At the end, then each team pitches their product to the club and debriefs. So let's say that they had glitter coffee, right? So I love using this example as well. They might say, like, have you ever wanted to feel the power of a unicorn? Or do you want a drink that's as pretty as a rainbow? Then try glitter coffee for $5 a cup for all the shiny caffeine you could ever wish for, right? So something like that. I'm sure with 10 minutes longer, then they would come up with something more robust, but you get the gist of it as well. So there's lots of different types of sisterhood activities, group builder activities you can really build in to build that sense of community and camaraderie with each other. Get them practicing their communication skills, their entrepreneurship, their creativity in different types of ways to loosen the mood before they get into coding and practice that as well. The next piece is a sample from our Women in Tech Spotlights for our 6th to 12th grade programming. And so a lot of what we do too focuses on that idea that you cannot be what you cannot see, right? And so how can we make sure that we're having more representation of inspiring and diverse role models to reflect the experiences of your students? So really be intentional too about how you include role models of all facets of identity, especially for underrepresented groups. So including but not limited to discipline or field that they're in, ethnicity, gender, race, social class, religion, etc. There's so many different facets of identity that we can really, visit when we're doing these different role model representations. This also doesn't only help them see themselves reflected, but also can help them learn about other identities in a supportive and respectful way. So, for example, that same club that I mentioned in Idaho, it was a club that had also boys and girls in their club. And the facilitator was saying how her boys and girls often don't get exposed to people who don't look like them outside of their rural mountain community. So she was able to showcase the Girls Who Code Women in Tech spotlights and introduce ideas of difference and identity to her club in a safe and approachable way. I'm sure you all are thinking about this as well as you think about your library collections and your media collections and making sure there's diverse representation of voices, experiences, walks of life. Same thing goes along with your programming that you have. How can you really bring into the fold new folks to change that perception of what a programmer looks like and does? A lot of what we do too is featuring, once again, different disciplines. Students can see themselves doing so many different things because they're passionate about a variety of different, facets of their life. So, for example, about 67% of coding jobs are in non-tech fields or non-traditional tech fields. So that can be manufacturing, forestry, medicine, art, theater, government, the list goes on and on. So this is a nice way to also introduce that in terms of who they can be when they get older as well. After that Women in Tech Spotlight, they do move into those coding tutorials, as I mentioned, and they're using these skills to build that project, which is that collection of work around the topic that they care about. And so this is a great way to make the curriculum real world relevant and impactful. So as I mentioned, they identify that thing they care about, use their coding skills to start building, whether it has to do with activism or health and wellness or educational equity. Some of the girls had created apps like Save the Turtles, which was a game that one of our girls developed to spread awareness about ocean pollution, or Hunger List to help people find donation locations for donating food to people in need, or Vibes, which was a website that a group had created to support mental health needs. You'll see even here is a sample from one of our clubs in Hawaii. It was like a design for a bullying prevention, like calming app, which is super cute. These were actually 3rd to 5th graders who came up with this idea. So you can also see too, there's different iterations of it. Maybe they are a little bit older, high school, able to go through, build the actual code and create everything there. Maybe they're a little bit more beginner, right? So maybe they're in middle school and are instead creating the wireframes of what it would look like and some sample code to get started on it. So there's different ways that you can really adjust it to the learning style of your students. The next piece too is a quick stand up, as I mentioned. So don't underestimate too the power of reflection. So the last portion of every club session for 3rd to 5th and 6th to 12 would be these stand ups. It's a great way for club members to keep each other updated on progress, needs, accomplishments, and also celebrate and get feedback or ask for help. Always definitely encourage you to think more deeply too about what this reflection can look like, right? Not just highs and lows or how we're feeling, but maybe what did they accomplish that meeting, or give an example of how you were brave, resilient, creative, or purposeful, or what kind of things you need help with in the next meeting. Who do you think can help you, or can you shout out another clubmate for something they accomplished? So it's a great way, once again, to build that community and growth mindset too as they work through it. For today's session too, and for this recording, I definitely encourage you to think about what your next steps would be too in terms of bringing equity and inclusion into your own practices. Great. So lastly, I would like to take a look at some of our free resources. As I mentioned, For the Clubs program is all completely free. All you need to start a club is a nonprofit space to host a club. So a library, of course, it could be a school library, it could be a school, nonprofit, etc. It could be in person or virtual. So if you want to virtually host, that's totally fine. You need computers and internet as well. So that could be Chromebooks, Macs, PCs, desktops, iPads, a variety of things, and internet. And then lastly, someone to lead that club. You just need to be 18 and older with a passion for what we do. No need to have prior coding experience before in order to get started. We provide you literally everything else, so you'll be all set and fully supported to go through it. The first thing we'll give is like a lot of logistics support, right? So those customizable, easy to follow and implement meeting guides. We have even student recruitment resources, so flyers, social media blurbs, parent, permission slips, all those things you might need just in case, all found on our platform called Girls Who Code HQ, which is our online learning management platform. We provide you training, that platform, which has all the curriculum on it as well. Essentially, Girls Who Code HQ is like our hub for everything Girls Who Code, even the application. So that's where you'll get everything that you need. We have extended computer science professional development resources that we've curated for you in terms of extra tutorials you can watch or participate in. And then a lot of community building too. We know it's also harder, to do that alone. So our goal is really to minimize that prep time and support you as you start your club. So we help you answer your questions, no matter how big or small, connect you with other opportunities to participate in exclusive virtual events, like our summer speaker series featuring like Jill Biden, Jack Dorsey, Yara Shahidi, Hillary Clinton, and more. And then after the club members graduate the club, they can tap into our alumni network to unlock exclusive opportunities when they're older as well, like virtual mentorship with our corporate partners, networking, our College Loops program, which is for our older students in college and universities. We also have different kind of Girls Who Code talks as well, where we talk about interviews and building your resume, and a lot of extra support for our alumni overall. So, as I mentioned too, in order to start that Girls Who Code club, all you need is that space, computers, and internet, and person to lead the club. We provide everything else. And in order to get started, you just go to girlswhocode.com/clubsapply. You create a Girls Who Code HQ account and then fill out the application, which takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes. It's pretty short. You get approved within a few days, and then you'll get a welcome email with everything that you need to get started. So very easy to do, no risk, no cost. And you can start even multiple clubs for the same library if you're hosting multiple age groups within the same library. I want to call out a couple other resources that we do have too, in case you're interested. We do also have Code at Home activities, which are standalone, downloadable activities too, that your library patrons can do right at home. They also feature inspiring women in tech and introduce coding concepts. It has a mix of online or offline activities and vary across skill levels. So feel free to also download those right off of our website and provide it out as a library resource. We also have our summer immersion program. So a little bit less relevant, but definitely helpful too in terms of maybe sharing it out to some of your high school library patrons who are looking for additional supports there. It is a virtual program for 2 weeks over the summer, hosted by our corporate partners like Amazon, Disney, Kate Spade, Twitter, Walmart, P&G, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we will have the application out in mid-January and recruit up until about March. And they can join us at different points in the summer. There's different start times depending on their area and what their interests are too. So more information to come there, but definitely check out our website as we get updates. Lastly, we do have different books and media as well. So you might have seen a few of these before. We do have a few different New York Times bestsellers. Learn to Code and Change the World, our nonfiction book, which is a great way to introduce students to the world of coding. It is also what our third to fifth grade curriculum is based off of. We have a couple of younger books too. So even if they are not ready to join a third to fifth grade club yet, we have a baby code series, which is super cute. I actually just gave some of the books to my niece and nephew who love them. So definitely check them out. We have the first book of our fiction series called The Friendship Code down here. We have How to Code a Sandcastle, which is also for a little bit younger students. We have some activity books. And then we also have our podcast, Brave Not Perfect, with really great interviews as well between our CEO and founder, Reshma Saujani. In case you saw her TED Talk, she's really fantastic at facilitating those conversations. And we do have also different media. So a couple years ago, we had celebrated the International Day of the Girl and released a digital visual album with artists like Lizzo, and did a few different types of engagements there for this digital visual album. So definitely check it out. So with that, I just wanted to thank you for listening today. I'm really excited to see how we can best support you all. I'm going to include my email here too. Once again, my name is Emily Ong, the Senior Manager at Girls Who Code. And so feel free to email me at emily.ong@girlswhocode.com. You could check out our website at girlswhocode.com as well. And hope that you are, excited and interested in bringing coding and equity into your libraries as you get started and continue on the great work that you do in your communities. With that, I'll stop sharing and I'll turn it back over to Michael if you have any other final words.
Well, thank you, Emily. It was really informative. I'm so curious. I feel kind of, I guess, privileged may be the word, but I want to avoid that word. Uh, Personally, I grew up here in New York City, and I was in elementary school in the 1980s, and I was in a very experimental school district, public school district in East Harlem. And in about 1986, one of my math teachers in the elementary school got a grant from an upstart personal computing company called Apple Computers. And we learned hypertext markup language as the second language in elementary school.
Wow.
And so, I was fortunate enough to have that experience, but it was only because my school was very diverse in a very poor neighborhood that Apple was generous to provide an opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
that coupled with I'm also a classically trained violinist, so I have that coding is natural to me. It's something that, today, for instance, at lunchtime, a coworker gave me a PDF and I opened the PDF. It was a fillable form, and I opened the PDF and it was all wonky. It's like it was bad. And I went into the actual document and there were multiple layers, fields layered on top of each other. But I have that background where I know what the architecture of this document is supposed to look like. And when it comes to this, coding is something that a conversation that I have with librarians and professionals in the field is, and especially in higher ed, we're having this conversation right now with accessibility, making sure that your documents, your websites, your web pages, your LibGuides, making sure that they're all machine readable for assistive devices.
Mm-hmm.
And the basis of that is HTML. You should have some basic understanding of that markup language, because that translates from text into whatever. But you can build an HTML document in Microsoft Word if you have that knowledge, and that document will be accessible to people who use assistive technologies. And this is something that libraries have just now started to talk about, that equity inclusion has to be centered on accessibility and making sure that we're building accessibility and sustainability into our user interfaces, and uh, resources and programming for our users has to be accessible, and that makes it equitable at the very beginning. So thank you again. This was a revelation. I knew some of the programming, but I think it's fascinating. The potential, you have the opportunity. You've been doing this. The organization has been around for 8 years. You said you founded in
Mm-hmm.
2012.
Right.
So yeah, you've got students who are still in high school that started 8 years ago. Like if they were
Yeah.
third grade, they're still in high school, and you've got students that are on their way out of college, right? So I mean, the research possibilities are really fascinating to me. You know,
Absolutely.
and especially with international, with the impact, it's so important. I
Mhm.
mean, it's something that I used to get kind of put off by gender specific groupings.
Mhm.
But to see the decline in female presence in the industry that you demonstrated, that you showed us, it's really impactful, and it's so easy once you get into the hang of it. I'm sure it's fun too. That I was shaking out with you. So I'm sure it's a lot
Yeah.
of fun. So I definitely will encourage our students to reach out to you if they have any other questions. I'm meeting with our next webinar is going to be with an alumna who is library manager here in Queens, and she's
Wow.
going to talk to us. She created a Bitmoji library as a digital interface.
Ah,
So she has a virtual library. She built it for children, but I'm
wow.
sure she'd be interested. She does have a little bit of a CS background, so I'm sure she would be very interested in learning more about this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And if anyone's interested too, I think in learning more on the data pieces and some of the research we had done with Accenture, we also just released another report about a couple months ago, perhaps, on looking at the sustained like retention of women in the workforce also after they become coders. Oftentimes, I think it was like 60% of female coders leave the industry by the age of like 30. So like how can we also not only train up our young people but have cultural shifts within the industry itself to make it possible for our young people to thrive and persist. So excited about that, and thank you so much for having us. It was really great to talk more to the librarians and see how to best support them.
Absolutely. You'll hear more from us in the future. Now for just some housekeeping as I wrap up the meeting. University will be closed on Election Day, November 3rd. Advisement is now open for the spring semester. Registration begins on November 4th. Our next Solicit webinar meeting is November 5th. Following that, I'm sorry, November 19th is the Bitmoji librarianship, and then the university will be closed for Thanksgiving recess starting November 23rd. Thanks again, Emily, for coming and speaking to us, and good luck with everything. I hope your program continues to expand, and I hope that this webinar got you some new club leaders.
Absolutely. Thanks so
All
much.
right,
Talk
bye
to us
bye.
soon. Bye.